You know, the funniest thing about films made on location in Egypt by Westerners is the way they flit from location to location, even though these tourist attractions are hundreds of miles apart. I know this isn't especially rare. I'm pretty sure that I've seen films that go from London to Stonehenge or London to Scotland in the blink of an eye, as if they're a 5-minute walk from Chelsea. But if you've been to Egypt and you know anything at all about the history and the geography of it, it's especially noticeable if you're watching The Spy Who Loved Me or the Peter Ustinov Death on the Nile. I just backpacked around the country for 3 months in 1996, and this is the point where the Egyptologists are going to jump down my throat in the comments for getting things wrong. But this is how I understand it. Over 4,000 years ago, the Egyptians started mummifying their royals so that they could emerge into the afterlife fully formed, as it were, and they needed tombs to put them in. They started doing this with pyramids up in the north, near Cairo, in the Nile Delta area. You can see the prototypes in an area called Saqqara. They're not very impressive, they look like big mounds of rubble. The famous ones are in Giza, of course, and they were originally white. They were covered in limestone. The problem with that was that it was like a huge sign to grave robbers saying the treasure is here. I mean, what was going to deter them? The mummy's curse, basically. So for plan B, the Egyptian nobility took a completely different approach and started digging tombs in the desert 400 miles south in ancient Thebes, which is what is now called Luxor. Yes, if you visit Luxor today, you'll find monuments that are very grand. There's the Temple of Luxor with its colossi. Just up the road from that, there's Karnak Temple, which is, there's a scene in The Spy Who Loved Me with Roger Moore that's quite well known. And with the ruins, all very lovely. But where the actual dead bodies were, and where Tutankhamun was found, was in the Theban hills in the Valley of the Kings. The idea was to be as inconspicuous as possible, but that didn't work either. And the graves were, of course, robbed. Apart from that of Tutankhamun, who was a minor royal, a boy king, didn't really achieve very much, but was buried with tons and tons of treasure in his tomb, with a golden death mask and all the rest of it. And the only reason that escaped the grave robbers was because there was an earthquake that buried the entrance. Now, the other attraction that crops up in these Hollywood films is the Sun Temple of Abu Simbel, which is in the far south of Egypt, down towards Sudan. In the 1978 Death on the Nile, which is set in the 1930s, a couple actually take an afternoon off from Luxor to visit Abu Simbel, which is quite some feat. When I was there, 60 years after Agatha Christie's story is set, I had to go down to Aswan first, then take a tourist bus at 4 o'clock in the morning that took 4 hours to ride through the desert. I arrived at Abu Simbel at 8 in the morning. It was unbelievably hot even at that time. You walked around for half an hour, you had a drink, you got back onto the bus, and it was 4 hours back. Now, Abu Simbel is rather different in character from the pyramids of Giza and the Valley of the Kings. It's really a monument to perhaps the greatest egomaniac of all time, Pharaoh Ramesses II, along with his wife Nefertari. And it's 4 statues of him sitting on a throne, carved into the side of a mountain. Never mind that one of the figures was destroyed in an earthquake. If it looks a bit blocky, that's because it used to be in a different location, and they moved it in the 1960s to make way for the Aswan Dam and Lake Nasser. It would have been underwater if they hadn't done that. Just incredible feat of engineering. So there you go, that's the pedant backpacker film buff's guide to Egypt in the movies. The settings are spectacular, the exposure is probably good for the economy, and subliminally the films are probably part of what attracted me to go there in the first place.